we're here. Monday. so I'm not on telly. Don't know what day it is. It's been a long week. It's been a long weekend. Some of us are still waking up from Leeds versus Wigan, which apparently was the worst game of rugby league ever. I mean, you were there, Phil.
I was.
You were there. Pork pie hat, notepad in hand, reporting on all the action, of which there was very little. One whole try and everything. It kind of open question to you out there. What is the worst game of rugby league you've ever seen? Because I can't believe that was. We had those games where Sky was singing at Huddersfield. They must have been worse because it was what it was.
It was playoff rugby. I think what we need to start with is the fact that when it gets to the playoffs, it's not about the standard, it's about the story. And I think we've had a rolling narrative from Thursday, including the NRL semi-finals, Women's Championship, League One. And every single game and its outcome has had a story attached to it, and it's how we choose to tell that story. If we want to tell the rest of the world that an 8-0 playoff game is the dourest, most unedifying spectacle, then we can't really complain when the broadcaster offers us 40% less money. The fact is, it was a typical playoff game, and as I think we've said on this programme many a time, you don't get any more points for artistic impression in the playoffs.
Well, that's why
you just have to find a way to win, and Leeds did. And the trouble is, if you start talking about the teams that have lost, and inevitably there was talk of Wigan and Warrington not scoring a point, it detracts from what the teams that have won did to put them in a position where they couldn't score a point, or they didn't score a point. And I'd rather focus on the stories that we've got. We've now got St Helens, who are going for a treble, playing the team who is the only one to have won the treble.
They're going for a double treble.
The team who have the only team to have won it from fifth, who yet again finished fifth. I mean, you need to build that as a rolling narrative, and then you've got the whole Hull KR story, and the amazing contrast in that game against Warrington of a collection of very talented individuals against a team of very committed players. You've now got the side that everybody, even I think some Hull KR fans would have found it hard to convince themselves that they were going to Warrington to win 19-0. Now on another adventure, getting on a plane and going to France, 6-day turnaround. It's everything stacked against them into an atmosphere that's going to be incredibly intimidating. But I wouldn't predict against them winning after the way they played last week. You've got an NRL grand final where you've got the Grandmaster.
Grandmaster Flash.
Who at the age of 71 is taking his team to a 10th grand final. 4 different teams he's taken there against the Penrith Panthers, who if you want to talk about how poor one game was, you have to balance that with how fantastic the Melbourne Penrith game was. And Penrith, who were carrying the pain of having lost the grand final last year, when they were the best team throughout the year, have now got to a grand final winning 8-6 and 10-6 in their playoff games. You've then got the League One. You've got Workington winning in the last minute. You've got Doncaster going to North Wales producing a great performance. You've got Keighley, who are still in it even after the heartbreak of losing in Golden Point to a penalty. In the Championship, the story of Batley is equally as amazing as Hull KR. There is a mirror between the two of them in what they've achieved this year. And they're now going to Toulouse in the same way Hull KR are going to Catalan. We've got the demise of Bradford, which again, Bradford fans will tell us what they expected out of this season, but I think they would have wanted to have gone one stage further. So what does that mean for the Bulls? Whitehaven with a great story going into the Championship playoffs, and so nearly pulled off something very, very special in the second half, but couldn't quite do it. So you've now got the Featherstone-Halifax rivalry again resurfacing, and in the women's grand final, they have a week off now before that. You got the March of St Helens, who looked absolutely remorseless in everything that they did, and again a fantastic playoff comeback from Leeds, who that DNA was just as strong in the women's team as it was in the men's. That York should have been 20 points ahead at half time, never mind 10, but Leeds found a way to win. So there's some great narratives there, and I'd rather focus on that than that game was rubbish.
We will get to Kirsty and Gary's questions. Don't worry about that, Kirsty. We will be talking about the women's game later in more detail, and we will be talking about the potential TV deal. And I can tell you this for nothing: we're not moving. We're not moving from Mondays. Well, unless we can't do it, we'll make them just do it as we always do. But
somebody gives us a shed load of cash.
Yeah, if you give us loads of money, because we know about broadcasting and vanity deals. That's why this programme exists and still does. So God bless the fact that Ken Bates wanted to stick one up the BBC and the people who own Leeds United. But there you go. Where is Ken? He's in Monaco. He's got his nice little flat overlooking the Grand Prix. Where are we? We're in Leeds.
Overlooking a pub.
Overlooking a pub. Could be worse.
Could be worse. Or we could be in the pub, which could be better.
Which could be. We'll go chronologically. Because we'll talk about the action first. Because we could talk about the dream team, but it's just... Well, we need to talk about the dream team because we don't know who's picked it and how.
I honestly think that
the email doesn't tell us, does it?
No. The thing about the dream team and the choices of the Man of Steel is that the formula that has been used to come up with them has not been explained.
Well, it has for the Woman of Steel, which is interesting because they judged the panel judged the players in the following criteria. So it might be the same for the men. A player who's made a significant impact on the season, right? A player who's made a significant contribution to the success of her team, his team. Player judged to have made a significant improvement in own player performance over the season. And player who's demonstrated a positive attitude and commitment towards professional behaviours and the player's code of conduct. I always thought the Man of Steel Woman of Steel was the best player in the competition.
Yeah.
And if you have that in, then I think you should be able to disqualify people from it for being gits. But I don't think that should be a deciding factor.
How about having a Git of the Year award?
That would be great, wouldn't it? But unfortunately...
The nominees for this year's Git of the Year
Got on for 2 hours. There'd be no time for Brian Carney to do the rest of his programme when he does it next week.
No, I think we need to know how they've come about the decision of how you qualify to be in the dream team and equally how the Man of Steel points, who has awarded them, on what basis, and is it done on... Is the dream team done on the Opta stats? Because again, they don't tell you everything. And I think we could make a case for some people who aren't in it, but actually, until you know how it's decided, I'm not sure there's any point in that. I think the point that was made by good old Sid, that it's very hard to have somebody like, for example, Jordan Abdul nominated in the Man of Steel, but him not be in the dream team. That doesn't seem to make any sense.
No.
I think there's also an issue about the dream team this year has only backs in it. And most of those backs are half-backs. And again, how are we deciding how you're a person of steel? Surely, by the very nature of that description, there has to be at least one forward in there.
Isn't it supposed to be the best fullback, the best wingers, the best two centres?
Well, again, we can say how it was done in the past, whether it was right or not. That certainly the dream team was sent out to journalists to nominate their team. It was a collation of that, and that the Man of Steel has had various different ways of doing it, with players themselves voting, which went down really well. A panel of legends last year who we are led to believe, again, because not everybody's been allowed in stadia.
The only panellist we know this year is Terry O'Connor, because he's named in this piece in the League Express. It says Man of Steel panellist, so maybe it's Terry's pick team.
Every time Sky have covered a game, maybe.
It's all Terry's fault. Just blame Terry O'Connor.
Terry's fault.
That's what everyone else does.
Well, then why wasn't Jared O'Connor nominated?
He's not fallen for nepotism, which is another thing, which is nepotism of the year in rugby league. Like when, there's been a few of those over the years. I remember when Wakefield signed one of the coach's sons. I think he's played once, but he was not very good. You'll have to work out who that was. I'm not going to tell you. So
it's hard to comment on it.
Yeah, because at least we know.
Congratulations to everyone who's been nominated.
The shadowy cabal has been named for the Women of Steel panel, but we don't know who's picked the Man of Steel or the team, so we can't blame them.
What I would say is, if we're talking about people who are giving out things with names on, great that Rob Burrows going to be at the grand final. Fantastic, huge fan. of everything he's ever done, and particularly what he's doing now.
Of course.
Brilliant that he is able to give out an award, be present. Why isn't he giving out an award in his own name rather than one in somebody else's name? And if we don't want to change the name of the Harry Sunderland because of the history that's attached to it, why have we not named the Super League trophy after Rob Burrow, and he presents the Super League trophy in his name?
I mean, I don't know, upset people, but what is the history of the Harry Sunderland trophy? It's not as if, Landstall is synonymous with the Challenge Cup final, the trophy as such. So that it is what it is. It's there. This is what was given to the Championship final winner, then the Premiership final, and now the Super League Grand Final. So
I don't understand. You could change that, but if you didn't want to, I don't know, counterculture Harry Sunderland, just name the Super League trophy after the man who was almost as tall as the Super League trophy.
Maybe they'll change it after someone writes a book or something about him, or more people learn the stories. I don't know. It just seems to be one of those things where it's glaringly obvious and it's staring you in the face that you can name this award after Rob Burrow. Not many people are going to be bothered, I don't think, if you rename this trophy.
I suspect it would
apart
be
from pedants and
it would be to universal acclaim, and it would have cachet beyond rugby league. And having him there and being part of the presentation team to give out the Super League trophy in his name would be absolutely wonderful.
And no one can deny that he scored a great try in a final, and it makes sense. I don't know. Teddy says we change far too much in rugby league. Yeah, but not things like this, which actually could be changed and make sense.
Well, we're not changing anything. We're naming something that doesn't currently have a name after somebody who deserved to have it named after them.
Why aren't half the awards at the end of the season, top meter maker or stuff, named after people?
Again, brilliant idea.
I don't know who you name the top meter maker after. Obviously, top try scorer. There's obvious ones at the top of the list, or top coach, or this, that, and the other, top point scorer. Yeah. But I don't know. Why don't we? Because immediately you give credibility to the history of the sport and a name people may not know, rather than an administrator.
The Man of Steel is named after Steve Prescott, quite rightly. Well, as you say, the hit man should be named after, I don't know, Adrian Morley, who most of his peers believe was the hardest tackler to play the game.
He's a bounce. Teddy says Steve Price's git of the year. That's a bit harsh, isn't it? I mean, it's not his fault. Oh no, it is his fault because he was the coach, isn't it? Let's start with Warrington, because if we talk about Wigan and Leeds, we're going through an endless spiral of Leeds of great stuff, which we'll come to. But Hull KR are great, and we're not going to take anything away from Hull Kingston Rovers because they obviously were superb. Everyone loves Tony Smith. Everyone loves Jordan Abdul. Karsten loves Jimmy Kynors because he's German. Mikey Lewis is obviously brilliant.
Well, I think Mikey Lewis's touch of brilliance summed up the difference between the teams and the approach of the respective coaches. That Steve Price seems to play system. So he gets people in that can play a certain way that he wants to play, which is no risk predominantly, or low risk. Doesn't exactly encourage players to do anything unless they are in the right part of the field. Whereas Tony Smith, the beam on his face when Mikey Lewis saw what was available, backed himself.
Did he play what he saw with the old chip and chase?
All of the...
all of them.
All of them apply. But what he did was, Tony Smith encourages his guys to take risk, manageable risk, and there's another side to taking risk, and that is if you make a mistake, you've got to be good enough to prevent the opposition from capitalising on that. But what he wants to do is has a philosophy about how the game should be played. And in that one moment, and I think at 12-0, the pressure from 1955 hit all the Warrington players. But that 12-0 was, we've got to score at least twice, possibly 3 times. And at the moment, we don't know how to catch and pass a ball anymore. That shot of Lewis seeing what was available and pulling it off. And let's face it, if he hadn't got the bounce of the ball and caught it, he would have still been surrendering it in the right part of the field, or they could have got a drop out. He saw that there was something on, was it the second or third tackle of that set? And he went for it and it came off for him, and we all leapt out of our seats, and Tony Smith beamed and looked at. I wonder what Lee Breers thought as part of a coaching staff that he's now leaving, where he could see for the third year running they were playing at home in the playoffs, and the weight of expectation was weighing so heavily on those Warrington players that they started playing uncharacteristically, whereas Mikey Lewis, the young, fresh-faced, impudent halfback who's had to bide his time and learn his trade, but was thrown in and given the opportunity, is coached by a guy who every day in training will say, if you're going to do it to our advantage, not disadvantage. And then said, right, you've done it on the big stage and it's come off for you. I'm really, really pleased for you.
Because I am not a wordsmith, I call him mercurial because that's what you call halfbacks. But you came up with a lot of the words there. Gareth Walker in the paper today calling him a virtuoso effort. A throwback to halfbacks of years gone by. It's what people want to see. They want to see halfbacks have a go.
Deserved to win a game. It won a playoff game. It deserved to. But it again exemplified the difference in philosophy between Wigan and Warrington, and to a lesser extent Leeds, although Richard Agar clearly is of the Tony Smith school and has a philosophy about encouraging attacking rugby, and Tony Smith himself. And it's fantastic.
I think it'd be harsh if I said Hull KR have got some players who've been discarded elsewhere, but they have got players who've been discarded elsewhere, like the likes of Will Dagger, who had lots of hype at the start of their career, George King, who's gone from Warrington to Wakefield and now to Hull KR, which is probably a sideways move and actually an upwards move as it turns out in the end. But they were superb, they were entertaining, and
their scrambling defence was magnificent, which again, all of the teams that have got through this weekend have had commitment in their defence.
We were talking before we came on about sometimes it's difficult to get into a game if you haven't got an emotional involvement in it, which is why people might not have enjoyed Wigan versus Leeds on Thursday, because it's two teams no one likes, so there's no underdog in there, obviously there is in a betting sense, but in a sense of no one likes Wigan, no one likes Leeds, so you want to see a draw, can't have a draw, so it's rubbish. Whereas at least in this one, Warrington, we can all laugh at them because it's not their year again. Hull KR, unless you're from Hull, you can get behind because they are the underdogs and they play nice rugby league. The 1955 thing, is Darryl Powell the man to be able to break that? Because this seems to be a thing that's going to go on and on and on until they finally do.
I don't know, but I just think under Darryl Powell, Warrington will play a more attractive style of rugby, and if they are going to break this hoodoo, I think the shackles have got to come off. Now we can judge the Steve Price era because it's come to an end. And I think, you look at where the team were when he arrived, where they are when he leaves, it's pretty much the same. I don't think he has taken them to another level. But even listening to the Sky commentators, some of the decisions they've made to buy people like Gregan. I'll be honest, I could not understand Warrington's team selection. I don't know how you can necessarily go into a game where at some point you might need someone who can change it off the bench without Blake Austin. I just thought he had to be there. I don't understand how when Matty Ashton had played so well the week before that you would put him on the bench and then leave him to come on when he's cold in an atmosphere where the game has almost gone and expect him to turn it around. I would have started with him. He deserved a start, and if that meant Ratchford displacing somebody else, then I think that's what they should have done. They didn't have a replacement hooker. They didn't have Danny Walker on the bench, which again has made a difference. It gives you a little bit of variety when you can take Darryl Clark off and put somebody else on in that position who does it a little bit differently. I did not understand the Warrington team selection, and I don't think you can just say, because Mike Cooper didn't play, that had a huge effect.
We should have got sent off the other week then.
So I think that came back to haunt Steve Price. He looked very conservative in the team that he chose, and I do think that this 1955 thing is going to haunt them, because you have to have a certain mentality within the players to get over the fact that the people in the stadium start holding their breath because they're worried that yet again it's going to happen. And Stefan Ratchford, who's been brilliant this year, had arguably his worst game. His least influential game. Gareth Widdop nominated as Man of Steel, could not put his stamp on the game. George Williams is another classic example of, late in the season or relatively late in the season, we will buy someone who is available, we will put them straight in the team, but they haven't yet fully attuned to what you want out of that team. Didn't influence the game.
Do you think he's just dropped Austin because he's leaving?
Well, I think they've brought Williams in and they're investing in him for next year. So, but I just think when you get to the pointy end of the season,
don't want to say business end.
No, contractually obliged to say. You have to have variety on the bench.
Yeah.
And the other thing I couldn't, just relating it back to Wigan, who clearly we don't want to talk about because it's such a dour game, worst game ever in the history of rugby league. Their only method of changing the way they played was to bring on Kai Pearce-Paul, because he's different to everything else that they've got, and he has got a fabulous offload game and the ability to break down a defence that people won't give a lot of credit for, but Leeds' defence was pretty good that night. You needed something different, but Pearce-Paul didn't come on until something like the 61st minute.
Sean Wayne's a fan of his, isn't he? I think I saw the quote. I wasn't I was invited. I wasn't in the England press thing this week because I was working, so I missed it. But I saw the stories coming out of it. Like, he's impressed by Kai Pearce-Paul. So maybe he'll be in the World Cup next year. Maybe in the England
I think he'll be England 9.
I think the internationals this year.
But I genuinely think that if you are going to win a semi-final or a playoff game and it's moving away from you, you have to put somebody on that is going to change it. For Leeds, and again, we're not talking about the worst game that's ever been played. Michalewski coming off the bench had a massive difference, particularly in his second spell. He got them going forward, and it was just different to the mix that they had out there at the time. And for me, Wigan and Warrington got what they deserved on the basis of the fact that they weren't adventurous enough to go any further.
Can he drive a lorry, Michalewski? He needs some lorry drivers. He fits the profile of being Eastern European. Apart from he's going to play for England, of course. And I didn't realise, because I put the telly on, I was trying to hinder my wife building a bookcase. Players missing from Hull KR's squad, including Ryan Hall, Adam Quinlan, Matt Parcell, etc., etc.
Massive players. But then in Jordan Abdul, they had somebody who stepped up when given the opportunity. George Williams stepped back. We can all delight in the progress of Hull KR, and I think that they've sold over 1,000 tickets at Craven Street.
Which is brilliant, isn't it? Because that's money coming into the club. That's
absolutely fantastic. If it wasn't a great idea to get them all together to watch the game in the first place, B, to have already discovered the art of putting on an event and to get 1,000 people to sign up to go to a manufactured event when it's not even at your ground, absolutely superb. They and clubs like Barrow deserve enormous credit, and whether they stay in or go out at the Dragons, I hope they make a lot of unbudgeted money at their home ground, and everybody has a party and enjoys it.
Flog some new shirts with a badge on. Let's get some thoughts on Warrington from Kevin, who is obviously a Warrington fan. He says no refunds for Tom Lynham, which I'm gutted about. It's a good job I don't work there anymore, isn't it? I'd be sacked by now.
Again, a strange decision. You're going to play a certain way with Tom Lynham in your side. I wouldn't have bought him back.
I just don't get it. Warrington was shocking, says Kevin. We sort of expected it, but not that bad. Feel sorry for the wire youngsters who played their hearts out, let down by the supposed senior players. The players seemed to get worse under Price. He coached the skill level out of them. We couldn't even pass the ball without dropping it and play the balls without knocking on. Longstaff, the shining light for why happy for Tony Smith. Everyone loves Tony Smith.
I just think, again, that they need to invest in youth. That they do need to play the Conor Wrenches on a more regular basis, and Josh Thewlis, and and not enough of them have had a regular enough opportunity. And when it came down to, do you trust them or do you not trust them, virtually all of them were pushed aside. I hope Darryl Powell gives youth.
Well, this would be something that people will say is that he hasn't done that at Castleford enough.
Yeah, but I think he's got more ready-made young players who have got a lot of experience under their belt to come in, and I think you look at any team that is consistently successful, and it starts with that balance between you do need some star names, but you need to build sustainability around your youth, and you can only do that by playing them.
Good news, Kevin, though. I just checked. Warrington Woes got a 50% sale on their website. So if you want all that Greg Inglis merchandise that they made at the start of the year, still ridiculously expensive. So that's good news for you there, Kevin. Sorry to urinate on your chips, so to speak, on that one. But,
I mean, I don't.
What can you do?
What do you think Lee Breers thinks? Because he is a guy who would play and coach in what we would call the Tony Smith mould. And he would have looked at that team losing 19-0 at home and thought, this isn't the way I wanted us to play. Andrew Henderson as well to a certain extent, and they're leaving. I mean, again, we'll talk about the fact that Richard Marshall at the moment has been dispensed with at Salford after merely 1 year. I seriously would be looking at somebody like Lee Breers to take that job on.
Warrington. Well, you can't give it away, says Kevin. I know you might as well give it to Charity. He's got faith in Darryl Powell, though, which is good.
Good.
He's got faith in Darryl Powell. New era, new broom. That's what you need. And
see, this is another. We are talking about the teams that have lost rather than the ones that have won, which you shouldn't do. But the feeling at Warrington is they've made some changes. That however deficient they came up on this week, they've got Darryl Powell. They will play a different way. They're bringing Ollie Holmes. They're bringing Peter Matautia. There are other players, Greg Minikin hopefully will get over his. So they're the kind of players that when you see them on your team sheet, you go, we're gonna play a certain way to our strengths. Sat amongst some of the Wigan fans on Thursday night, they are disillusioned beyond measure. There was a lot of talk in that area of the seats about not renewing season tickets because they cannot watch that style of rugby. Wigan's kicking game was arguably amongst the worst, I'd say. Their inability to turn 5 drives into a meaningful kick was poor. And I know Jackson Hastings was incredibly emotional afterwards, and I genuinely think he meant everything he said. He has been rehabilitated over here, and we love a rehabilitation story in rugby league. But somebody pointed out after the game that when he was at his peak at Salford and taking them to a grand final, he would be tackled with the ball in hand maybe 20 times in a game. So he'd take it to the line and it would confuse defences because you didn't know if he was going to run at you, pass when you committed, or kick over the top. And because he was prepared to take tackles, he was very, very dangerous and unpredictable. And nobody could remember him taking a tackle in the entire 80 minutes of that Leeds game. And again, I think if you're playing that kind of a way, you're never going to score enough points to win, no matter how dour the night it was at the DW.
No. We come out of the game with redemption. We go in with redemption with Rob Louis' presser before the game, which I was there. I didn't ask anything because I was only there to speak to Courtney Winfield Hill because I am on brand for myself. And everyone kept asking questions. I was get on with it. Got a podcast to record. So I only got to ask Courtney one question, but it was a good one, so it was all right. Rob Louis would be in prison if he wasn't in Super League, which I don't know if it's a great advert for Super League or not, but welcome to all those players from Melbourne Storm who'll be here next year. Really can't wait for you to turn up at probably Warrington because they'll spend all the money on you as they have.
But again, Rob Louis was quite clearly a difference between the way Leeds played and finished their sets and the way Wigan played without direction, and clearly there's a lot of people who will be playing their last games amongst all the 4 teams that are left. There's all loads of reasons, but Louis does seem to want to stitch his body together and go out on as big a high as he can, and he's playing that way.
As Kevin says, we'll be back at this Wigan game in a moment. He says, I can't see Powell accepting the attitude of the wire players. That is certainly something that he will not accept because that is not the Darryl Powell way. So Wigan Leeds, as we said, it was rubbish. 0-0 at half time, which is always good because they think, it might finish 0-0. We might get a 0-0.
Or
we
even
never
1-0.
do we? We never get them. It's so disappointing. And Leeds won. Leeds did what they had to do. It was a rugby match. It was on telly. Ash Hanley scored a try. That's what he does.
Richie Myler made it.
Leeds.
That's what he has done this year.
Leeds were the better side. If I was Wigan, as much as I said I want the receipt to get my money back off Tom Lynham, this would be controversial perhaps. No, it's not going to be controversial because everyone knows it. I want my money back from John Bateman because he's not been the player who they've signed. That's not been the John Bateman who we were sold from the NRL.
I think the only, if you like, saving grace for Wigan is that they have faced the same thing that a lot of other teams have faced. Most obviously Leeds, in that you cannot replace the irreplaceable. And to have lost Sean O'Loughlin and Tommy Luluai, Luluai may well do one extra year as a result, but those two players were exactly what they were missing on Thursday night. And they haven't found how to fill the gap, not of their ability, but their influence. The young forwards might be incredibly willing, but they haven't got that leadership yet. And with the greatest respect to a young player who hopefully will go on and have a long and illustrious career, Harry Smith is not yet ready to lead that team around. Not without Tommy Luluai. So there are. Whereas Warrington, you can make a case for next year might be their year. Wigan, there is a potential period of struggle for them.
People should go back. I forgot to mention this earlier. At the start of 2020, it seems so long ago, we were all at Headingley for the big launch of Super League. Sonny Bill Williams was there. Remember him? And James Maloney and all these people. And Mark, first question to Steve Price was, "Is this going to be your year?" Face like thunder. Brilliant question. You look at the the Wigan team. Looks a decent team, that on paper. I guess they've got a dream team player in there. It's because there's no other second rows these days. That's a bit harsh, isn't it? I shouldn't say that. Leeds have got a dream team player in there. Cruz Leaming's had a great year. I assume he's going to be in Leeds as player of the year and all that kind of thing.
I'd be very surprised if he isn't.
Because he's been really good.
And really good in two positions.
Yeah. I don't know what else to say about this game.
There's nothing else to say.
No, it was a game.
Leeds did what Leeds do when the playoffs come around. It rained this morning, and we're approaching October. I suspect that if St Helens start the way they have started, the majority of their games this year, they will have too much firepower. But if Leeds can hold on for the first 20 minutes, hang in there.
Are we talking about the men's semi or the women's grand final in a couple of weeks?
Either applies equally. Then, it's not like Leeds don't have form in these kind of games.
Doesn't matter, does it? The badge, it's the badge.
I think as well, when teams bow out, you can start assessing how their season has gone. So I think we can now say that Hull, Wigan and Warrington have been below par. And Huddersfield in many ways as well, because I think our expectation of what they would do was higher than they've achieved. But clearly there are signs at Huddersfield that it's still a work in progress.
They get the benefit of the doubt, the B of the D.
But clearly Hull now, Wigan and Warrington are in the underachievers file. I think Leeds have probably slightly overachieved. Catalan have certainly overachieved, and Hull KR are the best overachievers of all.
I'm going to guess that despite the letter in the paper saying that it was the lowest crowd ever between Wigan and Leeds, it wasn't the lowest crowd ever between Wigan and Leeds, because I'm sure in the doldrums of the 70s, which everyone forgets, there had been about 3 people and a dog there. You were, as you say, you were sat with the fans.
I was.
On Thursday at the DW, and they're restless. They are restless. They are not happy.
They are.
But they were the league leaders last year. They won the Shield and everything.
Yeah, I think it's not about...
They were seconds away from grand final.
But I think, again, the style of play last year, it's not the kind of philosophy that the cherry and white...
It's not rugby you can accept losing by playing. If you play a certain style and lose, you go, at least we were entertained. At least we had a go.
Yes. You wonder, even if they had Martin Fire in the team now, if he would ever get a pass. And I think the Wigan fans, certainly those of a certain age, are brought up on something more edifying. That it's not the defeat that bothered them, although they were clearly upset. It was the manner of the defeat that had been replicated so many times through this. Again, the stat that came out at the end of the game was if you average points per game, Wigan have now finished bottom of the league. Even below Lee, who were relegated. So, you pay to be entertained, and I think the Wigan fans, even when they were winning the grand final, perhaps, have felt that the last 4 or 5 years they haven't had value for money.
It's Anthony's letter who gets the top billing in the League Express. Do you get a prize for getting it? You can't do because of course I've had letters printed.
A Goldthorpe feather.
Yeah, he
The
says,
best
I
reward.
purchased the Daily Mail last Friday to find out what it had to say about the tedious, predictable confrontation between Wigan and Leeds the previous evening. There were pages and pages of football, national sport, cricket, yeah, boxing, big fight coming up, Formula One, world sport, golf, Ryder Cup coming up, horse racing, probably just the race cards. But not a single line about the match. My theory, there was so little to write about they didn't bother. No, it's the Daily Mail, they don't do Rugby League.
The truth.
I've got with truth.
The Daily Mail correspondent was not allowed access to the press box at the DW Stadium.
Finally, he says, I've cut a bit of the letter out. Either Terry or Barry, brackets, of the Sky Sports commentary team, not his mates down the pub, continually mention that knockout rugby is not for entertainment. Try telling that to the paltry 7,000 who turned up on Thursday night, which was a record low for a Wigan Leeds game as far as I know. As I say, we don't think it is. But you're right, it's not entertainment, it's about winning. And if you, well, it is about entertainment if you don't win.
There is a certain style that teams revert to in the playoff. And again, I go back to Penrith.
The Panther.
They have got there on the basis of their quite exceptional defence. But to win a playoff game, you need to score some points. And I think it's an old joke, but I think if Wigan was still out there now, it would be nil.
Speaking of style points and stuff, always comes under the microscope when your team loses. Oh, by the way, Sandy's been on.
Oh, right. She's a Panther.
She is. Why does Phil Gould do that, by the way? What's the opposite of pluralise? Singularise. That's it, yeah. As soon as I asked, I knew the answer. Panther. Why does he do that? What would he call Trinity?
Trini.
No,
Trini.
June. Duo. I don't know.
Yeah.
Warrior. Rover. Rhino. Helen.
He'd call Trinity duality.
Yeah. It's very confusing. Does Kevin say 6,200 at what? Are you concerned about that, Kevin? Why do people not pay to watch rugby? I mean, I don't pay to watch rugby. I did pay once this year. It was too expensive. I'm never going back. Maybe next year when, the Dow Power Labour comes in. Anyway, Sandy. Back to Sandy. Watched the NRL Awards night this morning. Loved it. A lot of details explaining awards given out to people. Many seem to be on factual game numbers. It's like the meter matron thing, which as we say, should be named after people. Weggy Slapstick, probably not their real name. At the beginning of the season, when I saw Rovers' team on paper, we were expecting 9th or 10th. Considering we was bottom last season, well chuffed with Robins this season. Great turnaround. Up the Robins. Up the Robins indeed.
I think it's great that they're playing the Dragons on the basis of the fact that the two of them became everyone else's second favourite team. So and now, I think neutrals will invest in just sitting back and going, we're here to be entertained.
There will be a new name. There will be a new name in.
And there'll be a new name at Old Trafford, which is fantastic.
We'll talk about the TV deal for the Championship and League One after we talked about the Championship.
Has it been
matches.
announced yet?
Well, no, but it's been in the papers and everything, or on the internet. Do people read papers? I
Hope so.
As I was saying with Wigan and everyone, Adrian Lamb, people say, "Oh, it's boring coach now." I read some Bradford fans online not happy with the style of play of the Bradford Bulls, and it reminded me of the later days of the Keir era at Wakefield when he didn't go off and take the Catalan job because Wakefield wouldn't let him go for an interview, apparently. Bradford losing to Batley 23-10. I don't know how much Bradford spend on their squad, but I assume that Danny Brough is not cheap and probably not Jordan Lilly either. And I assume Batley don't spend that much on their squad because they are apparently, from the outside, a well-run club who doesn't spend money they don't have. They've got a nice facility there in a wonderful town where I used to work for a couple of years. They do all the right things on and off the field, it seems. And they've got the result. They've beaten Bradford. They get another go next week. They get to go to France, which is wonderful, to play Toulouse. They are the whole cow of this situation, as you say. From the bits I watched of this game, because I was working on Saturday again, I saw the first half and I saw the final score. Great first half from Batley. Wonderful first half. And
I think, the try from Tom Gilmore, who was clearly the man of the match, at the end of the first half, I even took the slope out of the equation. But again, Batley had to defend manfully on their own line. And you got the impression that there's been a lot of change in the Bradford ranks, and that it was a collection of individuals against Craig Lingard's team spirit. Alistair Leake was fantastic coming off the bench. He changed the game. And the story of Elliot Hall, who scored the match-winning try, is just fantastic. It's like when we started this programme in about 1955 today. We're talking about it's not about the standard, it's about the story.
Yes.
Well, Elliot Hall is a fantastic story. Didn't even take up rugby league until he started playing at Loughborough University. Played for England students. I think started at London Scholars, but came to prominence at Coventry Bears. He works in the media department at Bradford.
I hope we don't send out them tweets.
And he scored a fantastic winning try against his employer. That's a story. If that had happened in First Division football, or whatever it's called these days, it would have been plastered all over the papers. That's what we need to sell. Batley were brilliant. And it looked at one stage in the second half when the remorseless Bradford pack was rolling down the hill that they would capitulate. But they held up a couple of times over the line. They had great belief in one another. Bradford, again, to me, looked like a team that physically had been put together before the new rules came in. They still seemed almost overly physical, as opposed to how do we cope with the 6 again rules and the no scrums. But it's a great story, and what would be funny perhaps is if Batley went all the way, won the £1 million game, and then said, "We'll just take the £1 million, but we're quite happy to be where we are. Thank you. We are a community club, and we're very good at it, and we'd like to stay in the championship."
They could like that. Won't have to sue anyone then.
Well, not necessarily. They could give promotion to the
Somebody
team
else.
that they played in the final, but. No, brilliant, absolutely brilliant. It was absolutely. It was a pleasure to watch Batley perform the way that they did, and I think even though they finished higher, that's a shock.
Is it great to see the slope on telly and everything? The famous Batley slope.
Nobody said the words 9 oil.
No. No crowd number given, which everyone jumped up and down about crowd figures last week when they were better than the Super League, but this week they've gone quiet about those. But
Well, it was a
extrapolate
Saturday.
things.
It was a Saturday, wasn't it? So
And then
a lot of the sport was on.
yeah, there was. And then Halifax beat Whitehaven, 24-20, another close game.
Yep, hanging on at the end.
Again, everyone gives...
Whitehaven, looked a little bit overawed at the beginning, but hit back with that great Cumbrian spirit. And they had a coach that was prepared to play players in different positions to try and get the best out of what he'd seen had gone wrong in the first half and how he could change it in the second. And it was a great occasion because Halifax Featherstone Halifax is a game I'm really looking forward to this week. But the Whitehaven story got a fitting finale. They came from nowhere to run one of the big guns really, really close.
Congratulations to Chris Kendall, who got the game breaker in the paper as well,
Did he?
given a penalty. So well done, Chris Kendall. That was good. And of course, those games were good, right? And the Super League games were rubbish, which means there should be more championship on TV. That's the theory.
That's how it goes.
On the internet. That's how it works. It's like you run a bookshop, I understand.
Has been known. I don't know about run.
Are the best... Well,
go to sleep upstairs.
The good lady wife runs a bookshop. Are the best-selling books the best books?
No, of course not. There is a great debate within
I'm
the
sure
book
some-
trade
I'm sure
at the
some
moment
are.
about whether Richard Osman's books, which are selling amongst the fastest novels ever, are actually good books. Does it matter? People are enjoying them. David Williams,
Well, yes.
another one.
That's what Super League's on telly, because it's the top division. That's why, like, the county championship's on telly, but your village cricket isn't on telly. I don't know why is that? Why is that? I don't know. Sometimes the county championship's rubbish. Sometimes your village games are good, but they're not on telly because it's just how it is. But exciting news from the world of rugby league last week is that there might be a TV deal. What happened to Channel 4, by the way? Remember when everyone was banging on about Channel 4 a couple of years ago?
Didn't have a fire issue this weekend and went
All
off air?
It happened when I was at work, so I missed it. And usually I like these things where TV breaks, but unfortunately I missed it all. Well, that was very disappointing. They probably had to put some repeats of Naked Attraction on or something.
Probably not before the watershed.
No.
What is the point? No, don't.
I don't know.
Don't
Why
mention
would you
that.
go? Why would you go on the program? Would you go on that program, viewers? What is the worst game you've ever seen? We're still waiting for anyone to ask about that. So here's Gary's question: have you heard anything about the TV deal showing Championship and Champ One on a live on Monday nights? How good were the Champions playoffs? They were better than the Super League playoffs. They were this week. Next week they might be the other way around. Who knows? One of the women's games yesterday was really good, and one was not because it wasn't bad, but it was just a blowout.
There
It
were
was just
things
what it
to
was.
admire.
It was what it was. You know, not every game can be great. Not every game can be. Lots of football.
Evenly matched.
Lots of football is rubbish. A friend of mine,
is.
big football fan. So much so he forgot his team was playing in the League Cup this week, even though it's a season ticket holder. But he says plenty of times, I watch my team, but not that bothered about watching the other.
Not sure the
teams.
Ryder Cup was great this week.
No, well, I'm sure.
But I suspect the next time it's on, it'll
Yeah.
get all the same 15 days build up. And
I'm sure it didn't always used to be like that, did it? It just used to be a thing.
how can we still be Europe? How can
Well,
there be any English players?
Well, this is
in
the
Euros?
funny thing about it, isn't it? Is that it was UK and Ireland until we got gubbed by the Americans for years, and then they brought the Europeans in because they had Seve Ballesteros. Ballerina and a bastard, as Alan Partridge once said.
But surely there can't be any English players in the
No.
European team.
I'm sure there have been many people this week.
We can't have our petrol and drink.
No, there must have been many people this week who were cheering a flag which they probably go and burn.
Anyway.
Anyway. Yeah,
So
golf's
yes,
rubbish.
as we say, it's not about the standard, it's
No.
about the stories.
This TV deal, if it is what has been reported, goes. I said this a few months ago in the programme, and nothing's changed, of my opinion. If you're going to be on Premier Sports, unless you're getting paid loads of money, which you're not going to be, there's no point. Because no one watches.
There's two issues for me, and I think you may have used the term vanity deal, which would be an extremely apt description. That we are seen to be getting a deal, as opposed to we are getting a deal of value. Yeah. There's two issues. One is, will rugby league fans take out a third subscription?
And for
So
other
you've got
people as
Sky, our league, and now Premier.
But they also may pay every month for Netflix and Amazon Prime and Disney
Yeah.
Plus.
And a season ticket at their club.
So they pay for a lot of things.
And should you be asking part-time players to play on a Monday night and fans of part-time teams to go to games on a Monday night? So I suspect that outweighs getting a television deal. When quite a few of us subscribed to Premier Sport, it had the NRL.
Yeah.
So you would watch the Championship and League One because you'd want to also watch the NRL. Now, if you subscribe to Premier Sport just to watch the Championship and League One, you do have to watch 5th Division Scandinavian football.
I've looked in the past at the viewing figures,
You have.
and generally in the last few weeks, I put some numbers up last week. Go on the Barb website, I've got it here to look at. Outside of the Champions League, which I think Rangers were playing, or Celtic, they get 40,000 viewers. 9,000 is the top number.
Yeah.
This week, the last week of figures were for the 13th of September, so that's 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Top programme, La Liga, Saturday at 5:30, so I assume that was a live game. 4,700. On the top 15 programmes on the channel, the bottom 3 recorded 0. Now that doesn't usually happen. There are only 4 programmes watched by more than 1,000 people. Now, bearing in mind, things like Polish Speedway, Japanese football on a Tuesday night, they are niches. They are niches within niches. And Rugby League Championship and Rugby League League One are niches within a niche within a niche. Again, I probably won't pay however much it is a month to Premier Sport because I don't have the time to watch everything, and
But
I don't
also,
want to pay more.
You're not
to
going to
watch
get
everything
great
else.
exposure for your sponsors.
Which
You
is what
can't-
people tell me.
You can't go back to them and ask for more money because they're going to be on telly if their viewership is ridiculously low.
And I hope people don't see this as being wantonly negative about a competition
it's
which
not.
my team is not in, and blah blah blah.
Not
blah.
until next year when they're 210. I'm joking.
It's just reality.
Go Willie.
It's just utterly It's just utter reality. You can't be asking people to pay for a TV channel. You can't ask players, as you say, to work, go play on a telly channel no one's going to watch, and come back.
Well, drive up to Cumbria, play on a Monday night, and then come back and do a shift at work on Tuesday morning. It's a hell of an ask.
Say every single person who watches the Championship in League One subscribes and watch every game. Now, I'm talking about the attendance figures we've seen in the paper. I haven't got one to hand. What's that going to be on a week?
Exactly.
10,000, 20,000? Plus a few people who are tragic who will subscribe.
Also,
if you subscribe to watch NRL, that's another cost, and you're getting all the support and everything.
But also, if you are, if you're serious about developing our league as an app that has a saleable value, you're then taking some of your product away from that and putting it on a channel that has no return on investment. It just, again, we saw it this week, didn't we? The League One playoffs, which we haven't got to yet.
That's next.
Couple of cracking games, but on at the same time as the women's semi-finals. So again, competing with ourselves. We have a limited. We have fans, particularly at the moment after everything that everyone's been through in this part of the world, especially, who don't have the same level of disposable income. If you sign a deal with Premier Sports and a number of your fans take out a subscription to that rather than buy a season ticket at your club, it becomes ultimately self-defeating.
Teddy's asked that, would a Monday night deal with Premier be worth a hit on Gates? Well, I know, say when Leeds play on a Friday, Leeds get a load of corporate on a Friday, which they wouldn't get on if they played on a Thursday or whatever, because it's if you end of the week on a Friday, isn't it? Monday, I just... It does strike me as it's a TV deal for the sake of having a TV deal.
Yeah, it's as you called it. It's a to be able to say they've fulfilled the need of the clubs that we need a television deal. We've gone out and got you a television. Yeah, but is it the right television?
I look at other things. I look at other sports, and I look at the world and think blah blah this that, and the other. It does strike me as this is purely for people who want to be seen on TV, regardless of the fact that there's no one watching.
Yeah.
And a Monday night slot is going to be up against the football for most of the year. Well, not most of the year, but at key points of the year.
Well, every Monday night on Sky there is a Premiership football match, isn't there?
I just don't understand, especially when time and money has been put in developing our league as a thing.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
I'm wary about saying this because I know people don't like it when it's said. Our league isn't perfect. There's plenty of things I think they should do differently.
But you're getting to the point where it's becoming a digital season ticket, and the offer is worth subscribing to. But what if you're now saying you can't afford both? Do you want a Premier Sport subscription, or do you want an R League subscription?
So, if Sky's slots for Rugby League set in stone are Thursday and Friday, occasional Saturdays for Catalans or whatever, we don't know what's going to happen going forward, but that's what they seem to be. Then the RFL, the Championship, League One, whatever else, has the rest of the weekend to play with. And we say it with the Women's Super League, if you make Sunday lunchtime your time slot, because I think that was our idea, wasn't it? You put it every weekend, Sunday, 12 o'clock, here's a game on, watch it before you go out to your game. So you say one game a week from the Championship or League One is going to be Sunday at 12 o'clock. And I know that's not convenient for everyone, tough, because Monday nights aren't. But at least if you put it on our league, you've got your captive audience who are Rugby League fans. We don't get the figures from this, but I'm sure they're probably going to be better than the Premier for no money. If you put it on YouTube, the PDC Darts, who they know what they're doing.
Funny that.
I think we sold out the other week for the boxing, wasn't it?
It was 20,000.
Yeah, and I'm
and
sure
that was on a pay channel.
I'm sure the Hearns are looking for their next Josh Warrington, not necessarily in Leeds, but in somewhere else that they can sell as a local.
Well, they're going to Liverpool, aren't they? They've got some.
There you go. So they've got
the next event is next weekend at Liverpool, and they're building the whole programme around Liverpool.
We won't care about that because it's somebody not from our
we
town.
won't be as invested. No. They'll sell out wherever they're having it.
They've had the women's darts on, which is an interesting thing because women for years have been saying there's not enough opportunities in darts to make money. So the PDC put on events and not enough people support them, so then it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. But this weekend, they've shown a couple of games. The PDC have a thing where you subscribe. I can't remember how much it is a month because I don't subscribe But you pay monthly, you can watch loads of darts. Darts everywhere. Darts. And it's easier to film a darts match than it is to do a rugby league game. That is obvious. But still. So they had these women's tour events on. And they do it with the men's tour events as well. They'll occasionally put a game on Facebook, a game on YouTube, to just tempt you in and say, look, here's some free darts, but if you want some more darts, pay for some more darts. They showed 2 Fallon Sherritt matches, who, as I pointed out on Twitter, is probably more famous than anyone in rugby league at the minute. Them's the breaks. We can't create a star like that. We can't just do that. One match, I think, when I looked at it yesterday morning, had been watched by 14,000 people, or 14,000 views on YouTube. And her match against Lisa Ashton, which had 24 hours on YouTube by that point, had been watched by 38,000. I'm not saying that to pick 2 teams out at random, Sheffield versus Oldham would get 38,000 views on YouTube, but I also don't think that the exposure on YouTube would be any worse than people watching Premier Sports on a Monday night. That you'd get on a Sunday at 12 or a Sunday at 6 or whenever, a Saturday afternoon during the summer. You can pick whichever time slot you want. You've got the whole weekend where you're not going to interfere with Sky. I just don't see the point of doing a deal that is purely for the vanity of those making the deal. I just don't understand it. And I don't know. It strikes me as too many people in our sport too often see TV as the be-all and end-all of everything when we're not living in the 1950s anymore or the 1960s. We're living in 2021. We're here on YouTube right now. People do this on Facebook, here, whatever. Right, we could be on Twitch. We could be anywhere. What happened to women's rugby on Twitch? Why did they do that on Monday nights? Why? CG. I moaned last year when championship games were played at 6 o'clock on Sunday, but that is miles better than Monday. A long Monday just ruins the rest of the week. Negatives outweigh the positives. We need championship rugby back on TV, otherwise the low league teams will eventually die off, says Kevin. I don't think it needs to be on TV. I think if you put a game on YouTube, which we've been saying for a long time, it's... If you're going to pay out however much they are paying out to stream games anyway, which we had a figure earlier in the year, which wasn't insignificant, was it?
No, it depends how you want to do it, but if you want to do it to production standard of HD television, it does require a minimum invest.
But if you do it to a standard for YouTube, for Twitch, for whatever, that's going to have more eyes on sponsors. Because you're not limiting yourselves to people who are going to pay Premier however much a month. Everyone in the world could watch. I'm not saying they will. There may only be 3 people watching. I don't know how many people watch Leeds' under-19s games that they put on YouTube for free. I don't know if they publicise them or not, but they're there for people to watch if they want to. Mm-hmm. Some clubs charge their fans to watch under-19s games and women's games. I don't see the point of that, to be honest. You may as well give people something for free if you're going to do it. But I can understand why people are going, oh yeah, TV, but it's got to be the right TV. It's not BBC One. It's not even Sky. It's not even BT. You're talking about channels.
Not even Channel 4.
No, the great Channel 4. People are just too invested in an idea that TV is the be all and end all. But if there's no money in it, there's no point. There really isn't any point if there's not lots of money coming in. Because if it doesn't negate the fact that you're playing on Monday, people can't go. You might not have your full team out because people have got to work. It's people getting excited because they want to sell a positive story that isn't actually positive.
We've won that.
But, I don't know. League One, qualifying semi-final.
Yeah.
Workington 18, Keighley 16. Workington win after golden point extra time with a penalty, which is always funny when that happens. Like when Brisbane beat Wigan in the World Club Series. Remember that? Remember that one, kids? The World Club Series? That was good. So Workington go through to the final thing because in the eliminator, Doncaster run close by North Wales in the end.
Yes. Great comeback. Yeah. I got in the end, left themselves too much to do.
I got about 15 likes on Twitter for doing a tweet about Ben Cockayne, so that was positive as well.
Was it 30 points up virtually at half time? And
almost threw it away, but well done to Doncaster on the comeback.
Again, North Wales. may have deserved to their fight back and played in a great manner, but just left themselves too much to do.
So
So Doncaster now go
Yeah.
to Keighley for the right to play Workington. The season end,
the end, the big games at the end of the season, yes.
the pointy bit.
Yeah.
Should the men's grand final at Old Trafford under lights with 70,000 people covered by Sky and with, because it's got a 6 o'clock kick-off, most of the national media aware of it, should that be the last game of the season?
It should be, shouldn't it?
In which case, should the women's grand final be on the Friday night?
Yeah.
As part of your build-up,
yeah.
and the £1 million game, possibly as a double-header with the League One
thing,
playoff grand final, be on the Thursday night.
Yeah, why not? Well, again, you've got the part-time players thing there, haven't you? But I guess.
But it's the climax of the season, isn't it?
You can sell that as a big week, can't you? Of stuff.
Well, could you not sell that to a broadcaster?
You'd hope so, wouldn't you?
I mean, already we've got Sky taking the women's grand final, which I would assume is either an extra game within the current deal that they've got, or they paid a little bit more for that because it wasn't part of the original schedule. They've got the £1 million game, which is what exactly the team that wins it is going to get, and everybody else in that division next year. Just £1 million. Again, you've got that already tied up as part of the Sky deal. I'm sure you could graft on the League One game, and if that isn't part of the deal, I'll give you £50 for that as well. Would you not play Thursday, Friday, Saturday?
Yeah.
I would.
See why not.
And I know logistics, it's getting to Toulouse on a Friday night when you've only got a week's notice. Batley are doing that this week anyway.
I'm sure you can arrange it somehow.
If you know in advance that that's how the season is going to climax, why wouldn't you do it?
Kevin says publicity comes from being on TV, though. It does. Now, the best thing we could do, and we've said this before, is to put together some kind of professional looking highlights program which you can just give away to broadcasters and they just show it.
Was it last week that you were saying that the Rugby Union
They
highlights
just lost their deal with Channel 5, which
they haven't
from what
lost
we
their
understand,
deal.
there isn't a deal, is there?
I suspect they just haven't paid for the production this year.
So if you give broadcasters something, chances are they might show it.
So the likelihood is that if you went to Channel 5 and said, look, we will put you together a highlights package that matches your definition for minimum standard. It'll be the Championship and or League One or a combination of, but we'll make it. That to me is a more worthwhile investment than going on Premier.
I think you can almost make an argument for any, because I'm not sure Channel 5 would take it, but any vaguely free-to-air channel on multi-channel television these days, because the Football League highlights on Quest.
Yep.
But that's a big step down for them from where it was in the past. Used to run BBC one, didn't he, after Match of the Day with old Gary. Not Scully, Lineker. But, I'm not saying... Let's be honest, right? When you're flicking through the TV, there is a point where you just stop and just go, right, I'm just going to watch something. At least if it's on a free-to-air channel. At least if you've got it on YouTube as well. Someone might stumble.
But see, what I don't understand is we're doing that anyway. Betfred are doing their R League podcast.
Yeah.
So there's interviews and there's previews and there's reaction. Yeah. R League themselves are filming a lot of games. Yeah. To turn that into a package where you've already got that footage.
And the clubs film the games themselves as well.
And maybe just upgrade it slightly. Mm-hmm. I reckon we have already got something that we could give to Channel 4 or Channel 5 to fill that. It might be on at midnight on a Tuesday. But to go back to the point of our latest correspondent, to me, that's how you get people invested. That's how you get sponsors along. We have to be cleverer rather than just say, and it's now Monday night on Premiere, which nobody really thinks is a great idea.
Apart from all the people that are banging a drum for whatever reason they are.
We're already now producing that content.
Yeah. And Betfred do their own things, and lots of people do things.
And it's in Betfred's advantage to keep doing that, and maybe even brand it up, because they get a return.
Loch Lomond Whiskies want to do some kind of programme where I mean, we haven't got much technology, as you can see, but
We will accept free samples.
yeah, we'll do something.
It's a bit of a level up from Bachelor's Mushy Peas.
Levelling up.
We did have
That's
a
the
can
term.
of that once, didn't we?
We did.
We ran a competition for your favourite brand of mushy peas. I'm happy to do the same for Loch Lomond whiskey.
There's something else I was going to say about TV, but I can't think what it was now. But yeah, I mean, any deal with a free-to-air channel is better than sticking it behind a paywall. Another paywall, because you say too many things to pay for. Kirsty asked at the start of the programme, can we talk about the women's game on Sky on Sunday? It was great to see. A massive well done to Saints and Leeds for making it through a respected grand final. Well, first of all, before we get to the grand final, the main prize is the Shield, which Wakefield sadly didn't get to the final of by not beating Bradford the other week. That's a shame. Bradford lost to Featherstone yesterday. That sounded like a good game in terms of the score because they were 8-4 up at half-time, but Featherstone came back to win. Andrea Dobson, who is retiring at the end of the season,
to play in a final in
scored a try.
Game.
And they take on Huddersfield, who, of course...
New?
Yeah. What did I say? When I interviewed their player after the game the other week, it was Bethany Oates, wasn't it, who I spoke to... Beth Oates, I said Beth Oates, whichever, apologies. I said after the game to her, some people, myself included, wrote you off, said you'd lose all your games, you wouldn't do anything, and there they are, they're in a final now. Shows what I know.
And it's on before the women's
Yes.
grand final at Headingley, so it is a double header if you... I
don't
would
know.
encourage people to come along and
Yeah.
see 2 games for the price of one.
I don't know if it's on TV or not, but...
Don't think it will
no.
be, but that I would suspect they'll show the highlights as part of their build-up to the women's grand
I
final.
know that Andrea Dobson will be on at the during the coverage. By the way, before we get on to the games, let's talk about the Woman of Steel Award, because...
As opposed to the man of the match in the women's game,
Yeah.
which we got yesterday.
Did we get that as well? Well, of course, this was the big thing in cricket last week, wasn't it, which everyone got upset about.
Batters.
Batters. Not batsmen anymore, batters.
I don't have a problem with that. Makes perfect sense.
Language,
Player of
isn't
the
it?
match. You don't have a man of the
Language.
match or a woman of the match.
Yeah, we just-
Player of the match.
The Woman of Steel nominees were announced last week, shortlist of which
5.
we went through the thing earlier of the criteria. I thought it was just the best player. I thought the Man of Steel was won by the best player. I know it hasn't always been that way, 'cause didn't the coach win it millions of years ago?
James Roby won it off the bench, didn't he?
Did Mick Morgan win as a coach, or was it just because he was at
It
Carlisle?
used
Just
to
some
be. It
random
used to be
award.
different. When they first started,
Yeah.
there were I think 5 awards, and to be the Man of Steel, you had to have won one of those 5 awards. So it could be a player, it could be a coach, it could be a referee. So
Fred Lindop, sadly not winning it.
you had to be the best.
Yeah. So I thought it should be just like the best player. The women's shortlist: Jodie Cunningham off of St Helens.
She'll win it.
She will win it. Frank Goldthorpe off of Leeds, which everyone now just tries to get her out of the game.
The ankle breaker
Rhiannon Marshall, who, you know what, she
clearly wasn't fit yesterday.
she's a player I love watching because she does things on the pitch that no one else in that competition does
She's
or
great.
can do.
She's great,
She's one of those.
but she
one of those
wasn't
that-
fully fit yesterday. I don't
Sinead Peach of York
think.
and Emily Rudge of St Helens, who I'm assuming they will be hoping is fit for the final.
She said on telly yesterday that she would be available for selection.
If I'd have had someone on the list who's not on there, Amy Hardcastle, because I think, as we talk about St Helens versus Castleford, I think her signing a million years ago, as it seems now, has been key to St Helens, because not that they didn't have the class before, of course they did. We just mentioned 2 of their players there in the shortlist for the Woman of Steel Award. But she is so good and has been so key to... I mean, I'm saying this from the outside. I don't know what they like do it, but I think in terms of mentality, in terms of being a winner,
I think
she's changed their team around.
Carrie Roberts. I
Yes.
think she's been equally as good, and massively influential. And they play to her, and that means moving the ball out wide. And it's been a joy watching those 2 play, and either setting up or scoring the bulk of their points.
On Wakefield's Danny Swain should get something, because how she captains that team week in, week out and never stops. She's a bloody inspiration. Too many players should be like her. Saints beat Castleford 58-0. No one is surprised at this.
But again, like, you can call a game dour that finishes 8-0. You can admire a game
Yeah.
that finishes 58-0 because of the skills that were on show. There is clearly something driving this St Helens team over and above their natural ability, which is in abundance. They want that treble. They feel it. I think
Double
that
treble, see?
they haven't put the silverware on their sideboard that some of their performances have deserved. They want to rectify that this year and win everything. And who's to say they won't? They look brilliant. You can admire. The international where England played Wales, there was lots to admire, even though it was a blowout score at the end.
Jodie Cunningham will win Woman of Steel because she's playing 13 at the minute. She's got number 1 on the back. She plays everywhere.
And she's played hooker and half.
They are... Whilst at the start of the season they win it, so I'm not changing my mind from anything there. I'm not saying, nothing has changed from the start of the season to change my mind on this one. I have a great deal of sympathy for Castleford. Spoke to Jasmine Bell in the week. You probably saw it online. What a great attitude. If you don't think you can win, there's no point in turning up. And they went there. They had a go. They had their coach leave just before the start of the season. Obviously, the players leaving midway through. They've still got some quality players there. Obviously, Georgia Rochard injured doesn't help. But you can't say they haven't had a go.
Absolutely.
Made the semi-finals. Well done to them. Hopefully, by being able to regroup over the off-season, because you can't put to lose those players at a crucial part of the season just before that semi-final.
Unexpectedly.
Yeah, it's... they deserve a lot of credit. This season.
They have hit back in a very impressive manner.
But they lost to Saints, who are the best team in the competition, despite the fact they didn't go unbeaten in the first. But then one of the losses because of COVID. It's nonsense, isn't it? So Saints are really good, and now we have got the grand final that we wanted because we have got the two best teams. We've got the two best teams in the competition.
I do like the way everybody keeps saying it's at Leeds' home ground when they don't actually play at that ground.
No, play at Weekwood. It says it on their shirts. The Angry Ambers. This was a good game, wasn't it? Because it had everything you'd want. Comeback, underdog kind of team thing.
A Don Fox moment.
Yeah, I mean, the strange thing with York is, and it's almost like an unsaid thing, even though everyone watching knows and everyone listening knows and everyone who's had half a mind on Women's Rugby League this year knows, York started the season with a team which was expected to finish bottom. They brought in, as director of rugby, the coach of the team who got to the last grand final and the Challenge Cup final, last two Challenge Cup finals. They then bring in a number of key players from that team that got to the grand final last season and the Challenge Cup finals. Then bring in a number of talented prospects from other clubs around the competition.
Olivia Wood.
She's Emma Kershaw. Liv Whitehead.
Love Olivia Wood, the way she plays.
The York City Knights who played yesterday are not the York City Knights who lost to Leeds by 60 odd points. Yeah. It's
you cannot compare the two.
I'm not accusing them of buying success. I'm not accusing them of doing anything like that. I'm just saying it's disingenuous to claim that the York who are playing now were the same York at the start of the season.
It's not the story of Hull Cow or Batley.
No, it's not the story people want it to be and are trying to push.
But as it happened, they could have been 20 points up at half time. They were so much more effective in moving the ball quickly and forward. But the comeback was like typically Leeds in that it's something ingrained in the DNA in playoff football when you wear a shirt with that badge on it that they just don't know when to give in. And it took a fantastic, you use the word virtuoso to describe Michael Lewis's try. Courtney Winfield-Hill's performance in the second half was virtuoso, and I would like to pay credit to Kira Bennett, who barely got a mention in the commentary, but I thought again kept Leeds in it. A distribution out of dummy half to get the forwards running on at speed to start making ground was sensational, and the two tries that won it for them were scored by a loose forward. which barely got a mention. Who was playing on the wing?
Before I forget, I just want to say, and Savannah Andrade, who we spoke to before the match, and I should say again, I said it on social media, but thanks to Saints and Leeds and Castleford and York, who put up players for us to speak to. Yes, Leeds was part of a press conference, but so on and so forth. Gave up their time to speak to us. Very much appreciated. Know who we'll be asking to speak to at the start of next season, because some clubs I won't even bother with again, because there's no point. If people want publicity, you've got to actually, unfortunately, do some
Could
work.
somebody tell Wigan that?
Well, they were one of the clubs at the start of the season who didn't do anything worthy when we did our start preview of the Women's Super League season.
Well, I think if they deny journalists from national outlets the opportunity to report on their games, then sometimes they get what they deserve.
You slag off pies or something. You say pie butties are evil. You slag off mint balls, or who's famous from Wigan? What's her name? Lisa Stamp. No, she's from Rochdale. Who's from Wigan?
Bradley Wiggins.
Gracie Field. No, she's Rochdale as well. Everyone's from, not Grace Field, who plays for York.
It was a fantastic game.
Yeah, so the point I was going to say was, Savannah Andrade said in, and I pointedly asked it, York, who have ended this season, the York who starts next season will be much stronger. Whether they sign more players or whatever, we don't know what's going to happen, but because they've had more time to gel or whatever, York next year will be a much different proposition than they have been this year. And the fact that they lost this game, you'd assume they'd take more out of that. Much like when Leeds lost that grand final to Wigan, that they will take more out of that and learn and
come back stronger.
Because I think that's what Saints had to do. Saints lost those two very tight semi-finals to Leeds, which we blamed on Faye Gaskin going to a wedding, of course, with the Challenge Cup. Leeds are the second best team in the competition. You know what the problem is and we go back to the Hull KR and Warrington again, why people are investing in that, because you can have an emotional attachment. Obviously, Wakefield fan, but there is an emotional attachment to this Leeds side, and I enjoyed watching them come back and win.
It shows.
Pains me to say this.
Real character.
But you mentioned
and
Kira
it was
Bennett.
A great team performance.
Yeah, you mentioned Kira Bennett, who, and this is the benefit of going to see games. You can see performances that you don't necessarily see on TV. And I think it was against Warrington at Bellevue probably months ago now. Her distribution, superb. Top. I think it was her second game back from a knee injury. Superb. Hannah Butcher.
Unsung heroine.
Amy Staveley. All these names
They all
just
had,
do
but
work.
They all had to stand up together as a team to come back. And the individual bits of brilliance by Courtney Hill were exactly why she was the star player. But she couldn't do it without her team getting her to the right part of the field or backing her up. They went ahead and you thought, wow, that maybe they could do it. And then they conceded a knock-on, which became a penalty from the restart, which led to a try, which couldn't be converted. But all of a sudden you're thinking, have they spent so much energy to get in the lead that when they immediately get pegged back again, they're not going to be able to rally, and they rallied once more. It was a great game. It was everything that's best about women's rugby league, but also just a huge display of teamwork. The teams that have triumphed this week, be it Penrith Panthers in the NRL, be it Leeds Rhinos women, be it Batley or Leeds or Hull KR, their team has been greater than their individuals. Their individuals have done fantastic things on the back of Mikey Lewis's try wouldn't have meant a thing if somebody hadn't made a last-ditch tackle either earlier or later in the game. And the teamwork has got the teams that we've seen to the semi-final end and final end of the season.
I think it's going to be a great grand final. I think
clearly there's going to be a red-hot favourite.
Yeah, and I think they will win comfortably. I from what I've seen this year, and I've only seen Saints play once, in that semi-final against Leeds, live in person, just because of how the fixtures.
But that was closer than it looked at one stage.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be a great spectacle for the sport.
You know what the only negative right yesterday was? Why did you put Saints on first? Because then everyone buggered off. Apart from Andrew Quirk, he was there.
Because I think they knew that the better game, the closer game, was going to better as in close was going to be second, and Sky would want that second in their schedules. You wouldn't want your main course before your hors d'oeuvre.
There's a difference, of course, between having no fans at a Women's Super League game and having no fans at a Men's Super League game where it's well established.
And again, I think the television coverage of those two women's games elevated it, like we saw with the wheelchair the week before. And that's no disrespect to Premier Sports because it was on Sky with their full team.
Yeah. Now, I mean, the big concern is here, because we look for the disciplinary, it doesn't appear to be anything, is this apparent hair pull on Savannah Andrade.
It was a hair pull, quite a blatant.
Who was it? Do we know who it was? Will they get? Is that in the operational rules? You're allowed to pull it out.
It should have been at least a sin bin.
Contrary behaviour.
Was it Chloe Kerry? I can't remember.
So,
but yeah,
don't know. Never gets put on the website anyway. If anyone's been banned this year,
mind you,
on there.
Sophie Robinson had a try disallowed that looked.
That she put the ball
like
down. Yeah, that's true.
So it balanced it.
Yeah, it's like that York trying the at Wembley when they scored that try. That wasn't a try. That was good. That.
Aaron Moore was very good as a referee of that game.
Kevin says, I haven't seen Bradley Wigan at Wigan for years. It's because they're rubbish now. Who else is the famous Wigan people? Apart from... that's it. On
George Orwell.
Kevin also says, I wonder if Nancy Pelosi has binned her wire top Lindsay Hoyle gave her yet. Do you see that again?
I think probably that they've actually signed her for next year.
Yeah, probably. Could be their year. Took me ages to Google, just like the last one, it's always their year in different languages. Teddy says Amy Howcastley's class, size of a prop, speed of a winger. She's very good. And Kevin says, yes, Phil, playing 13 players playing as one is better than 13 players playing as individuals.
Common theme this week.
I think generally it's been a good week.
It has been a good week,
You know,
and that's why we shouldn't
has
focus on a game that was
Wigan
deemed
was
to be
rubbish.
dour.
Yeah.
Get
Are rubbish. Wigan have gone now.
Get in the narrative of what that actually means moving forward. We had a great, so many good games. I mean, even Souths and Manly, which was a bit of a blowout score. Loads to admire in that game, and I say the story of Wayne Bennett is. Do you see the documentary on Clint Eastwood on Channel 5 on Saturday?
I didn't. Was that the one that was that taken off because of the?
No, I didn't realise he was such a philanderer in his private life. 8 kids by 5 different women.
Wow.
Something like that.
The NRL.
And Barbara Streisand. But we're moving off topic.
Can never go over how she spells her name. What we haven't spoken about, of course, is Wayne Bennett. Probably going to go to Salford now. Let's pick 6 names at random who could be the Salford coach.
Okay.
Wayne Bennett, Chris Chester, Sean Wayne, Laurent Fresneau,
Sonny Bill Williams. And Gary Schofield. They're all in the frame, reported to be the next coach of the Salford Red Devils. Monday Club's back.
I didn't think it was the right appointment in the first place, but not for any reason to slag off Richard Marsh. I'm not saying he's a bad coach or anything, but you're going to a club there which is obviously has major issues off the field in terms of where they're going to play in the future. Doesn't have a massive budget. You've had the heart ripped out that's gone in terms of the players.
The trouble is as well, they over-exceeded, didn't they?
Very
Getting
much so.
to a grand final and a Challenge Cup, which was massively laudable, and an immense credit to those players and Ian Watson. But actually, it's an absolutely thankless task for whoever takes over, because you haven't got that same squad to work with. So the mutual ending of Richard Marsh's contract would indicate, and we're not privy to anything, that neither side particularly thought that arrangement was working. Him as a rookie coach with his first job in Super League, and the talent he was given to work with, and the prospects of what that squad's going to look like next year. As we mentioned earlier, I would appoint a Lee Breers, because I think if you're going to play, you know, if you're going to be at that end of the table again next year, and we have no idea what that's going to look like, because if we are getting to the 2-10s that Simon Johnson indicated, then you're looking at 2 clubs at the bottom of the season who might be playing in Super League 2.
Surely Nottingham and Trafford. They're all
Whatever it
going to be
might be called.
relegated.
Which this year, if you went on the current league table, would have been Salford and Leeds. But so I would appoint Lee Breers, and if you're going to go down playing the most end. Do what London Broncos did under Danny Ward. Is Danny Ward a candidate for Salford?
We didn't put him in that list, did we? So he'd be a surprise appointment now.
But I would appoint Lee Breers.
Off topic says Weggy. Will the 4020 team be attending Craven Street next season? Probably.
Hope so.
Get invited.
I'd love to.
I'd
love to do a live show from there. To be honest, if we can get back to the kind of things that we used to do, at the races at Ponty, it would be absolutely lovely to do a live broadcast of this show from Craven Street with all you Great Hull KR fans on it. I'd love to do that.
I mean,
Sydney would be the star of the show.
We do a live podcast, but the Super League one's doing that now. So we don't want to step on John's toes. Not that he's in the magazine. Teddy says, get what's in, guys, Schofield. Has he been on to you today?
Yesterday.
He must have been happy with the result on Thursday.
I don't care about Wigan. Playoff rugby. Saints by 12.
There you go. There you found it, Saint.
He's all right. He's got his operation on Wednesday, but he's all right. It's at his bidding and not somebody else's, so he feels pretty much in control of his situation. And he had a Rob Burrow golf day last week.
I think he's mentioned it in his column.
Has he? Yeah. Which I think will have raised a tidy amount.
Yeah. He's running 2 next year.
Is he?
For the Rob Burrow Foundation on the Thursday, the 19th of May. And on behalf of blind and partially sighted people, and also the British Heart Foundation on Thursday, September 22nd. Please keep checking the column for further details on how to enter. There you go. Gareth Hughes retired. Does he get to go on the pitch with the trophy?
I think he brings on the silver whistle before the game at Old Trafford.
Don't have enough referees. There's more referees. It is that time of year where everyone gets called a legend even when they're not. And there's not a knock on Scully, by the way.
I think we do need to do more to commemorate players who retire, because there does seem to be a real core of them this year, of fantastic servants who are bowing out. They need to be properly sent on their transition to the next part of their life.
So if you do know, by the way, who has picked the dream team, because it isn't us, and who has picked the Man of Steel shortlist, because that wasn't us either, please let us know in the comments, because we don't know. Kevin says, hope Lee Breers gets a chance to be coach somewhere. I think he will.
I hope
you
so.
Imagine?
I hope so.
People like him, don't they?
I think he's just got a great outlook, and I think he is a good communicator, and I think Salford would be a really good fit for him.
If anyone needs a drop goal coach, there's your man. That's what he would have done.
There you go.
And as Kevin says, Salford were never going to match this season what they've done in the previous 2. No, it's never going to happen. And as we've seen with Ian Watson at Huddersfield, we had high expectations of him, and it hasn't quite worked out so far. I'd just
love to know deep down what Lee Breers thought of that Warrington performance, because we've seen him, in similar situations with the Warrington team in a playoff game, come up with some magic, and I didn't see any spark of magic for that full 80 minutes from Warrington, and that would be the disappointing thing. If they'd gone out 19-18 to a last-minute Hull KR drop goal, but given it their all and entertained and scored 3 length of the field tries, then you go, best team won. And the best team did win, but I'm not sure Warrington gave a good enough account of themselves.
I think, as Kevin said earlier, congratulations to them on winning the PDRL Grand Final the other week.
Yeah.
And at least this year they can claim actually to be the champions, not just legitimately.
And
not
it was on national telly. Because the last leg not only featured the conversion by the blind Leeds PDRL player, which again is astonishing.
Ridiculous, yeah.
Absolutely astonishing. But showed Adam Hill's not only setting up what was the winning try, but quite brilliantly, the best part of the Warrington game from a Warrington point of view was them parading his leg round at half time when the trophy was shown to the fans. It wasn't his real leg.
No. If you watch on YouTube, I think that's it. There's nothing else, is there? I think.
What the headlines today?
I don't know. Things been announced. Sam Tompkins might play.
I don't think he will, and I think that if he does, there is a danger that he won't get through the game. I think that's a real big decision for Steve McNamara to make this year. Do you just say, look, Sam, we're going to do it for you. give you another week. You'll play at Old Trafford. I just think you can't take a risk with injuries at this time of the year.
There's loads of people's birthdays this week, but then again, it is every week. 49.44% of League Express readers suggested that Hull FC had the most disappointing season.
Was that before or after the Wigan and Warrington game?
Well, that's true. And with those things, it is always of people who bothered to vote.
Yeah.
I think they forget sometimes, especially when they talk about, taking...
Oh no, Scully said Rovers' victory run can continue, so that's Catalan in the grand final.
Congratulations, Catalans. We'll see you in a couple of weeks. Well, I won't, because I'm not going. To Old Trafford. I've got a better invite.
I'm hoping to go.
Have you upset anyone in the Super League?
Hope so.
Yeah. Coming up on the podcast is some more PDRL talk with someone who's involved in the grand final, as in Wakefield Trinity's Dr. Emma Kirk. So stay tuned for that if you listen to the podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, there isn't. It's already up there anyway. We'll be back next week with perhaps John Davidson in the studio. He's playing Rugby Union now.
Yeah, he did.
What's going on there? These Australians, they don't get it, do they?
He was playing at number 10 and tells me he didn't kick the ball once, so he won't be picked again.
No. The Johnny Wilkinson of this programme will be back.
Are we going to get his sidekick from Morley?
I don't know. We keep trying to, don't we? But he don't reply to my messages. I just don't think he checks.
I'll ask him.
I don't think he checks his Twitter DMs. So that'll be next week as we build up to the grand finals in more detail, which we're looking forward to because it's all exciting. That's the end of this programme, which was 4020 Live. Check out the exciting magazine, which is here. Look, it's got Magic Weekend
full of
on it.
scrumptiousness.
And it's in the bottom corner there. You can see as well on your screen. I've put it there on
Perfect reading to accompany your wait for semi-finals and grand finals.
Indeed. And what else do we need to